they ordered us to proceed as rapidly as possible. The Chinese were closing rapidly around the port of Hungnam. The Chinese had not only encircled that port, but they had advanced so far south, there were no land routes to escape from Hungnam at that time. Keep in mind that they had set up perimeters surrounding the port, and as the Chinese were advancing, the perimeters were folding one into the other. The Army representatives that came out to our ship, we were one of the last ships in the harbor at that time, came out to tell us that the Chinese were probably between 4,000 and 5,000 yards from the port, and we were in the inner harbor at that time. And they asked the captain, because of the vast number of refugees crowding the beach at that time, but they were coming in by the thousands. Think of this. These are North Korean refugees leaving all of their towns, homes, and villages in North Korea, where they had lived under communism for 5 years, seeking freedom, sacrifice everything from towns and villages where their families had lived for hundreds of years. It was freezing cold winter. Most of the young men were already in the military. These were thousands of mostly women and children and elderly men huddled on the beach, and they were still coming into Hungnam, seeking access to the ships. General MacArthur, Douglas MacArthur in Tokyo, had said, start taking on as many Korean refugees as possible. The Army had set up strong points, several thousand yards surrounding the port. They had set up a command post on the beach in a cave. We had the full support of the 7th Fleet in the harbor. We had the firepower of the USS Missouri, 16-inch shells firing into all of the Chinese positions. This was all over our head. Our captain, Captain Leonard P. LaRue, had ordered that we take on as many as possible. We're a cargo ship. We commenced loading as many people into these cargo holds as possible, lowering them down with booms into the holds on pallets. The booms would lower them down as deep as they could. We had no heat, we had no electricity, we had no food, we had no water, we had no doctor, we had no interpreter. These Korean people came aboard. Women were feeding their babies. The older men had young children under their overcoats, trying to keep them warm. The weather was freezing weather. We filled each of the 5 holds, and then the captain ordered that we commence loading the last of the refugees on the beach. Keep in mind, we're the last ship taking out the refugees, and we placed them on the weather decks. That's the open decks on the ship. And meanwhile, we had the ship positioned so that she was facing out to sea. We had the boilers running slowly underway, in a sense like a getaway car, ready to get underway in case the Chinese broke through the last perimeter. The 3rd Infantry were taking casualties. When you think about it, men were fighting and dying, enabling us to load the refugees. In any event, we did get out. The Missouri was anchored just near us, and I could see some of the men on the Missouri coming up and looking at this ship, our ship loaded with humanity. In every space, in every deck, every open deck, crowded in all of our holds, etc. And we were able to navigate out through the minefield and proceeded south along the east coast of Korea. We arrived there Christmas Day, December 25th. The Navy the next day, 26th, sent out 2 LSTs, landing ship tanks, and they were tied up next to us, one on either side. We were able to offload all of the Korean refugees into these LSTs that took them ashore. And I must note, some of you Koreans in the audience would appreciate this, that some of those Koreans did the traditional half bow in thanks when they left our ship. But we were able to offload and disembark 14,005 people alive at the island of Kojido.